How many sales calls can LinkedIn actually book you? There is a real specific number for your business. It's knowable, and it comes down to 3 inputs you can estimate today by the end of this video. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the math with 2 examples of 2 very different companies. But here's what makes this worth your time. One of those 3 inputs, the one almost everybody dramatically overestimates about themselves, has changed drastically in the last 2 years because of AI and automation. The ceiling that used to be built into this math is now gone, and most of your competitors haven't even noticed it as it relates to signals. By the end of this video, you'll know your formula, your number, and exactly which input decides whether that number stays small or gets serious. What's going on, everybody? My name is Brian Higgins. I am the AI for Sales guy, and I help founders and revenue leaders build AI sales systems that actually put meetings on the calendar. And if you've been here for a while, welcome back. You already know that all we talk about here is building sales systems, not just adding additional headcount. Let's face it, we still need people. Your pipeline shouldn't depend on how hard your team is grinding every day. It should run on a consistent, reliable system. If these are things you want to talk about and learn more about, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's jump into this. Let me guess at something you might be feeling right now, because I hear it from founders and revenue leaders constantly. You've been burned. You were promised a number by a marketing agency or someone that was going to generate business for you. And they told you a figure, they're going to book 15 meetings a month or 30 meetings a month. Guaranteed. So you built your plan around it, but then nothing materialized. So you become allergic to anyone throwing out big numbers. Good. You should be, which is exactly why I'm not going to throw out a big number. I'm going to show you how to use math on your own with conservative assumptions, so that way the number that you walk away with is one you can actually defend. Anyone promising you a number without understanding your market, your offer, and your track record is someone that I would not trust. Personally. Now, if you're just landing on this channel, 60 seconds of context so this video stands on its own. At any given moment, about 3% of your market is actively buying. But companies broadcast the instant they start entering a buying window well before that 3%. A new sales leader, a hiring surge, a funding round, engagement on people, content, and competitors. Those broadcasts are called signals, and they tell you the exact time when to reach out. And when you pair them with a message that actually speaks to the moment that they're in, your messages stop getting ignored. The 2 previous videos on this channel cover all that in depth. This video is about what it produces. So let's face it, pipeline for most people is hope. You do the activity, you hope it turns into something. What I'm about to show you is how pipeline becomes a math problem instead. And math you can reason about is math you can actually engineer and tweak the numbers. Your number of book calls is an output of a system, and that system has 3 inputs. So the first input is your signal volume. How many companies in your target market and leaders at your target companies hit a meaningful buying signal in a given month? And this is a real number. You can find out this data. A big active market throws off hundreds or thousands of events a month. A tight niche might throw off under 50. Neither's bad. They just require a different system. And you'll see both versions in a minute. The second input is coverage. Of those opening windows each month, how many can you actually act on and do it well and on time? Windows expire. A job change window is strongest in the first few weeks. If you miss that, it's ultimately gone. And I want to flag something right now, because this is the input the whole video turns on. Coverage is the number almost everyone dramatically overestimates about themselves. And it's also the input that AI and automation have completely rewritten in the last couple of years. The other 2 inputs are properties of your market and your message. Coverage used to be a property of your headcount and your funds. It isn't that anymore. Hold that thought, because we're going to obviously come back to it. And then input 3 is conversion. Of the well-timed, well-matched touches you make, what share become real conversations? And of those real conversations, how many become a booked call? When you multiply those through, you have a very realistic monthly account number as to how many appointments you can expect. Signal volume times coverage times conversion. That's the whole formula. Now, let's actually run it a few times. Let's start with a B2B SaaS company. Say you're targeting between 50 and 500 employees, and your addressable market is, say, 2,000 in your addressable market, to keep the numbers easy. So signal volume first. A reasonable planning assumption is that somewhere around 4 to 5% of your market hits a meaningful signal in a month. A leadership change, a hiring surge, a raise, an expansion, your real rate will come from actually watching your market. So you can confirm that on your own. Let's use 4% to stay conservative. 4% of 2,000 is 80 signal windows opening in your market every single month. Now, in the last video, we talked about picking your top signals. We're talking about math as it relates to your top signals. Sometimes you can fill in additional gaps with other signals, but the point is we want to lead with the signals that are going to give you the most dominant result. And the way we determine those signals is the 10-deal look back, which we talked about in one of the previous videos. Now let's look at coverage. Let's be honest about the manual version. One dedicated person doing this seriously, the scanning, the research, the matched messages, the follow-ups, they might cover 20 to 25% of a window a month, not 200. So 25 done properly. Now I've watched this of people trying to do that, and they always try to beat that number by hand of 25%. But the reality is quality collapses as the quantity rises, and you always get busy and time suffers. So now let's talk about conversion. If your signal map is right and your message followed the structure from the last video, roughly 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 covered windows turn into a genuine conversation. That's a reasonable plan that you can put in place. And about half of those real conversations, people that are engaging about the actual situation, can move to a book call typically. So be conservative, 25 covered windows, a third become conversations. That's 8, half of those book. That's 4 calls. So the manual version of this system, run honestly and with real discipline in a 2,000 company market, produces something like 4 to 6 book calls a month from 5 to 10 focused hours a week. Now, before you shrug that number, compare it honestly to what your volume outreach produces right now. And remember, every one of those calls is a company that's inside a buying window. They're starting to evaluate your types of solutions. These are not just random meetings of someone who agreed to say yes. But now let's look at what is left on the table when you think about that. Out of 80 windows that opened, you only covered 25. 55 expired untouched. Your market handed you 80 opportunities, and your capacity took 2/3 of them off the table. And that's with disciplined manual effort. So here's the thing I need you to sit with. For the entire history of outbound sales, that leak was a fact of life. The only fix was hiring more people, which meant more salary, more ramp, more management, more turnover. That's the part that has changed. And I'll show you exactly how much in a minute. But first, let's talk about the small market, because the math changes differently when it's a smaller market. Let's say you sell a specialized service into a market of 200 companies. 4% means about 8 windows a month. You could cover all 8 by hand. Coverage is not your constraint anymore. But with only 8 windows, every single one is precious. So the message match has to go deeper, more research per account, more personalization, longer nurture. In a small market, conversion has to carry the math in the formula. And it can, because you can afford a level of personalization that like a big market player with a lot of opportunities just can't compete with. 8 windows deeply worked, converting at higher rates, can absolutely produce 2 to 4 calls a month. And in a 200 company market, that pace compounds fast. Different shape, same formula. And this is worth saying clearly, because people assume that signal-based selling needs a big market. It doesn't. Some of the best results come from tight niches with a small number of high-value buyers, because timing plus depth beats volume everywhere. And so in a small market, nobody else is typically even trying to time it. Now let's come back to the thought I asked you to hold, because this is where the math gets interesting. Everything that limits manual coverage is repetitive work. It's structured work, scanning a market for signal events every day, enriching the account, finding the right person, drafting the message that referenced the specific signal, running the follow-up schedule across dozens of open threads without dropping one. For decades, every one of these steps required us to do it, and time and effort, which was why coverage was capped by how many people and how many accounts you could work. And that leak was just a fact of life. That was permanent. That's the way it was. That is exactly the category of work AI and automation can now do, and do at full coverage. Not the judgment, your positioning, your offer, the call itself. That's still you. The repetition, a system watches every company in your market every single day. It catches every window the day it opens. It drafts the signal matched outreach in your voice for a human or an AI layer to run, and never forgets to follow up because it never gets busy. The method I've taught you across these 3 videos does not change at all. What changes is the ceiling on input number 2, capacity. So based on that, let's rerun the math a third time. Same 2,000 company market, same 80 windows, same conservative conversion rate, but coverage at what infrastructure actually reaches, call it 85% instead of 30, 80 windows, 68 covered, a third becomes conversations. That's about 22. Half of that, call that 11 calls a month. Same market, same message, same conversion assumptions, nearly triple the output. And the only input that moved was coverage. That's what AI changes. It didn't invent a new method. It just removed the headcount ceiling from the one input that was always holding us back from the beginning. And here's the competitive reality. Most of your market is still running volume tools or manual effort or not running signals. They're building lists, which means the coverage advantage is sitting there unclaimed right now for most businesses. Here's the line to take away. You can't scale willpower, and you no longer have to. The method is knowable, the math is knowable, and coverage, the input that used to be capped for headcount, is now an infrastructure decision. Pipeline is not a people problem, it's a system problem, and systems are buildable and scalable. Now, whether you run this manually or on infrastructure, the operating rhythm is the exact same, because a formula without a workflow is just information. Monday, scan and map. Review the week's new signal events across your market. Which companies hit your signals in the last 7 days? Any compounds where there's 2 or more signals together that you could stack on the same company? And you build the week's target list from what moved that last week. Not from an old list, not from previous weeks, the last week. As the week continues, you research and write. For each target, you confirm the signal, you identify the right person, you write the 3-part message from the last video that we talked about, and you start sending. Follow-up is vital in a timely fashion. Thursday would be for longer follow-ups, but you work the value touch schedule. Who got the opener last week? Who gets the value touch now? Who's at the 6-week mark? Work the replies, deliver what you promised, ask the situation question, move conversations toward calls. On Friday, you want to review 5 numbers, 15 minutes, make it fast. 1, you're looking at signal windows that were found that last week. If that trends down, your scanning is slipping, or your map maybe is too narrow, you need to expand. If windows are found but touches lag, you've got a capacity problem. 3rd is reply rate. If it's low, the message match is off, go back to the structure. 4, conversations started. If replies are coming but conversations don't, you're fumbling the reply stage. And then 5 is obviously book calls, the output. Those 5 numbers you're always going to want to know because they're going to tell you which part of the machine needs the wrench. And here's the warning that comes with the manual version, because I'd rather you go in clear-eyed. The failure mode of everything I've taught you is not that it doesn't work, it's that it stops running. The Monday scan turns into Tuesday or whenever you can get a chance. The target list gets built from the old lead list because you're not taking the time to find it, and it's faster. The matched messages drift back toward templates because bridges take effort. The Friday numbers stop getting logged, which is the moment you lose ability to even see that you're having a problem. You run it for 3 weeks, it starts producing, then you have client fires or you're pulled in a different direction because of a launch or just the nature of business. And 3 months later, you say signals didn't work for you. They worked, they just need to keep running. And they were depending on busy people to run them. That, more than any feature, is the real argument for infrastructure. Now, we've run this across entire ranges of businesses, small operators in a small tight niche to enterprise brands like Panasonic and Ericsson. And the pattern holds with every size. The businesses that win aren't the ones with the best message or the bigger list. They're the ones where the system runs every single week, regardless of how busy the humans are. I've had the privilege to lead 8 sales teams throughout my career. And whenever we would look at funnel years ago, it was always, we would do the math, right? It would say, how many cold calls did you make? How many doors did you knock? Like, that was the input. Okay. Of those doors, how many turned into conversations? Of those conversations, how many turned into a proposal? Of those proposals, how many turned into a sale? And we could figure out the math and do it. The problem is the effectiveness of the individual. They went on vacation, they stopped prospecting because they started closing deals from it. Those are human capacity issues. And that if you ask me as the sales leader, my boss would say, how many conversations are happening next month? How many meetings, how many proposals, all these things. And you can't give it an exact number because it's hope. You're hoping they do the activity. When you track these 3 inputs, it changes because when you automate the things that can be automated and use AI, you don't have to depend on willpower, including your own. All right, so I'm going to give you an assignment. You want to run the entire steps of this series. Run your math, your market size, times the signal rate you'll confirm by watching your market for 30 days, times your honest manual coverage, times conservative conversion. Write down your number, then run it against a full coverage and write down that number. The gap between those 2 numbers is your leak, and it's the most important number in your pipeline because it's the revenue your market is offering you that nobody is collecting right now. So at this point, you have the entire method, the signals, the message, the math, the rhythm. Some of you will go run it manually, and genuinely, you can based on how many appointments you need. And all you need is these 3 videos and the playbook that there's links in the bottom. But most people watching this already know this version of the coverage number describes their reality. The question isn't whether the method works, it's who or what runs it at full coverage on the Monday that you're too busy to do it. Lots of people have gone out and tried AI tools, but none of them delivered. When you build a system that's built and runs on your market, your messaging, your offer, and your numbers, that's where we can come in. We would build and implement essentially an AI SDR system that does all the signal-based targeting, the message matching, the bridges, the execution, and the follow-up to get the meetings booked on your team's calendar so they wake up to conversations booked on their calendar instead of trying to create them manually and grind harder. Fastest way to see if this is even a fit is to book an AI sales strategy call and a signal report. On that call, we build your signal report live. So we collect some information prior, we finish it on the call, and we will give you the actual accounts in your market that are hitting buying signals right now. And we run the exact math with you. So we look at your signals, your offer, your track record. We give you an honest number as to how many appointments we think a system could realistically book for you. If the pieces line up, I'll show you your number. If they don't, I'll tell you that too. Regardless, the report is yours, and the accounts that are open windows in your market, you could keep those, and the link's in the description. Now, in addition, the full written playbook from this series, every framework, the worked math, the exercise is also free in the description. You can see the link. If this video and or this series has been helpful, be sure to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you great content and ensure that we're helping you build AI sales systems. Let's close with this. Predictable pipeline was never a personality trait or a lucky streak. It's the output of a system or lack of system with 3 knowable inputs. And for the first time, every one of these inputs is within your control. The buyers who are ready for you are already in motion. The only question is the system you're currently running, whether it sees it or not. And if you jumped into this series here, go back and watch the signals video because your numbers start with knowing which 2 or 3 signals actually predict revenue for your business. And I show you exactly how to find them, including an exercise that takes a little bit of time. It's on the channel. Be sure to go watch it. Appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you on the next one.